February 23rd. Battle Trophies. Felicity woke with a start, pulling her rifle close as she rolled into a crouch and reached for her helmet. The scaly bastards were fast and quiet and can alter their skin to blend with their surroundings, although they were no worse than the bastards that made up her squad. If those bastards hadn't been human and supposedly on the same side, she'd have killed them long ago. But she couldn't. They were fighting for Aquapearl, for Earth's rights to mine it against a population that shouldn't have been there. It made her sick. Sentience. They should have left when they first discovered the world wasn't empty as they hoped. They were supposed to leave when they discovered these things. And when she finished this tour, she was going to find a way to make that happen. The killing had to stop. Not that the natives were helpless, but they shouldn't have to die either, and neither should her soldiers. She scanned the dark. If she got out of this alive, the men and women in her squad were going to be charged, and then they were going to be shot. She was going to see to it. In the meantime, she had to survive them and try to save as many of their intended victims as she could. The clawed hand that looped out of the darkness to cover her mouth came as a surprise, as did the hard muzzle of a las pistol pressed into her ribs. The voice in her mind wasn't welcome either. You will be silent and you will live. We know what you do for the lives on this world. They did? And just how were they in her head? That is something we would like to know, but now is not the time. She was dragged back through the bushes, away from her sleeping roll and pack. It was instinctive to try and catch it up as she passed. Futile, too. Shadows moved, solid against the leaves, and someone screamed in agony. The lizard man shifted his grip and tossed her to the ground, kneeling beside her, one knee on her chest, the hand back over her mouth. Felicity struggled against his weight as he raised his other hand, a 2-foot-long spike gleaming in its grasp. She screamed as he drove it through her shoulder and into her chest, dangerously close to her heart. Why? She wanted to ask, but couldn't. The lizard man's eyes gleamed in the moonlight, his features almost familiar even in the night, even through her fear. Do I know you? You spared me today, he replied, plucking the thought from her head as he lifted her in his arms and carried her to the makeshift latrines of a newly built base camp. He propped her against the wall as the spike's poison took effect, freezing her limbs to immobility. Across the camp, the squad commander begged for mercy and then screamed a long, ululating sound that shattered the dark. The lizard man followed the direction of her gaze. Punishment first, death next. A message must be sent, justice done. He turned his head towards her. Mercy begets mercy. For my life and the lives of my heirs, I return yours. The barbed spear he pulled from the sheath over his shoulder was terrifying. I'm sorry for the pain. It is poor thanks. And before she could reply to that, he'd driven the spear through the newly healed wound in her thigh, and her pained cry joined a chorus of others. I am sorry, but I cannot allow you to remain a threat to my people. So remember, mercy begets obligation. As you have saved my race, I now give you the chance to save yours. He allowed her to see him clearly, dropping the blend under a clear sky as dawn came, then drew the blade across his arm, staining it with his blood before laying it across her chest and bending her arm so he could wrap her hand around its hilt. Once he was sure she had a firm grip on it, he took a flask from his belt and tucked it under her other arm. You will not be able to see the blade, but you will know it is there. Keep it as secret as you are able, and keep it safe until he can retrieve it. When the time comes that you need to see it, or those of us who are blended, drink of this, but only when my heir has come. The change is permanent. The night had fallen to silence, and then the lizard man had set off the distress beacon at her belt and disappeared back into the forested gullies and foothills he was defending. It had been a long time before help had come, and she'd been taken home. The blade went with her, as secret as she could keep it. The flask too, although what she was going to do with either, she didn't know.